Welcome, everybody. It is not, no pun intended tonight, and that's okay because we are here for season 4 of the WOFF Podcast. I'm Josh Hudson, one of the no pun intended hosts, but you know what? It's not about me. It's not about Joe. It's not about Ryan. This is about women in sports. This is about raising money to help women conquer careers in the world of sports. We have Kelly Singh here hosting today. Unfortunately, her co-host Faith Enes is traveling, so she can't be here. And what a shame, because we have the ultimate guest. I'm super excited and so incredibly happy that Kelly was able to bring in this guest. Ladies and gentlemen, the Princess of Darkness, Amy Trask, is joining us today. She's the former CEO of the then Oakland Raiders, now Las Vegas Raiders, and current CBS Sports analyst, excuse me. But enough about this intro. Let's kick this off.
Hello. You guys, this is so exciting. Here we are, season 4 of WOFF. And yes, it does stand for Women of Fantasy Football. That is our community year-round. But as you know, during the month of August, we dedicate an entire month of podcast series to interviewing women in sports media who have made a significant impact on the space. And today's guest is no exception, if not probably the highlight of my life right now. Super excited because Amy Trask not only represents that women in the sports media space, but I have paid really close attention to her interviews, and Amy Trask is a champion for anybody who is qualified for the position, not just if you're a woman, just marginalized people in general who may not have the opportunity to really chase after their dreams. And she inspires that and gives that confidence. So that's what I really am excited to talk about today. So we have Josh doing the production thing on the other end. And I'm assuming that now, and I thank Amy for kicking off this season with us, that when Amy speaks, it's going to happen. Is that right, Josh?
I'm here.
All right. Amy, it's working.
Thank you so much for that extraordinarily gracious and generous introduction. And thank you for having me on with you. It is a pleasure to have this conversation.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I read your book. We have been mutuals on Twitter for quite a while. I was telling Josh, outside of just, I don't even think it was sports related. It was just Twitter mutuals. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to ask her. And you so graciously said, I don't play fantasy football. And I'm like, that's okay. We're not talking about it. We're going to talk about your career. And your book picks up, Amy, with you really putting in your 2 weeks notice and chasing your dream. So I want to start this off by what led to Amy Trask saying, I want to work for the NFL and I'm going after that dream. How did you get there?
Well, I'm certainly going to answer that, but I will add one thing to your note that I don't like fantasy football. It's not necessarily a dislike. Fantasy football stresses me out. And maybe it's my background in the league and that, that's not the way we looked at things. But my first year on CBS, I was asked to participate in fantasy football. And I became so obsessed with it and so stressed if I had a bad week. My husband was saying, you need to take a deep breath because you are getting far too crazed about this. So I decided, you know what? Fantasy football is just not my cup of tea. I'm not good at it. It got me all stressed out, but I don't have any aversion to it for those who love it. And there are some people who, of course, love it. You live in that world. They live in that world. So I'm not passing judgment on fantasy football. I'm simply saying I suck at it. So that's my disclaimer on fantasy football. I'm really bad at it. As to my career, I fell in love with the Raiders. They became my team. In other words, I became a fan of the Raiders when I went to Cal Berkeley. I grew up in Los Angeles, fell in love with the game of football when I was in the 8th grade. Didn't really have a team with which I identified. I liked football, but I wasn't a super fan of any NFL team. And then I went to Berkeley, and right down the road were the Raiders. And I fell in love with everything about the organization. This was a team, the owner of which didn't care if someone had labeled a player a behavior problem, a big problem, trouble. Look, I was labeled a behavior problem in kindergarten. And that label stuck with me all the way through high school. It was always, oh, she's the behavior problem. She's the behavior problem. A lot of people would tell you I'm still a behavior problem. But the fact is, here was a team, the owner of which, Al Davis, didn't care if a player was labeled a behavior problem. If you could come and you could contribute, that was terrific. And, then we all saw what he did in ensuing years. He hired Tom Flores, the first Hispanic head coach of the modern era. Then he hired me, a girl, and then he hired Art Shell. This was someone who hired the way everyone should hire, without regard to race or gender or ethnicity or any other individuality, which has no bearing whatsoever on whether one can do a job. So, yep, I fell in love with the team. And when I graduated Cal, I returned home to Los Angeles to go to grad school. I was sitting in the sort of the sitting area, the lobby area, the lounge area of grad school, listening to people a year or so ahead of me talk about internships and externships. And I'd never heard of an externship. I had heard of internships. So I thought, well, that sounds kind of neat. And I picked up the phone and I called the team and said, I'd like to be an intern. And that's how my career started.
That is amazing, Amy. And I think so many of us can relate to that. If you actually have the courage to pick up the phone and say, I want to be an intern. I know I happen to fall into that camp. However, my career ended up in the marketing space. But it's so closely aligned in a sense that I know exactly what it feels like to be the only woman in the room oftentimes, at least in the past. It's changed so much. But when I first picked up your book, mere paragraph in, and the line hits the title, you negotiate like a girl, it hit me like a ton of bricks and almost triggered a bit of PTSD in a sense. That I didn't realize how much emotion I attached to that phrase, like a girl. And after reading your book, after watching you, listening to your sound bites, and taking in your content, you've actually helped me to reframe that criticism.
Wonderful.
And I say that in quotes because it's not a criticism, right?
Well, wonderful that you were able to reframe it. And I hope that the way I conveyed it in the book was that I turned that into a positive, that at one point, and this is something Al said to me, and I knew, look, this is the man who hired me. He hired me in the 80s at a time, I was brought in as an intern by someone else and then ultimately hired full time. Intern in the early 80s, joined full time in the mid 80s. I knew it didn't matter to him that I was a girl. There was nothing about being a girl that it wasn't an issue. So when he blurted that out in a moment that was very, very tense, I ended up getting the deal done. It was the single highest amount ever realized for a transaction of that nature in the NFL. And I walked in and I dropped the documents on his table for him to sign. And I just looked at him and said, like a girl. And he laughed and I laughed. So it certainly wasn't intended, although I do understand why people thought, this was a negative. No, it was a positive. Yeah, I did it like a girl. Highest number ever achieved for a transaction of that nature.
Exactly. Because when I first read that line, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel that to my core. And then I just kept reading, and the way that you did convey it, it completely just changed everything for me. And that's just in the last few months, Amy, because there's still times that I feel like I contend with being a girl. And there's no reason for that. Just like you've said, you don't let it offend you. You are the best person for this job, and that's why you are here. And I've just really taken that on, and I wanted to share that with everybody because it completely changed everything for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, as you can well imagine, I'm asked quite often, were you tested because you were a woman? You were the only woman in the room in a lot of different settings. Were you tested because you're a woman? And my answer is, I don't know, but I
Right.
think it's fair to assume that I was. Well, people are tested all the time. People are tested because of their race, their gender, their age, their educational background, their seniority on the job. People are tested all the time. Well, what's the best thing to do when you're tested? Pass the
Do it.
damn test.
Exactly.
So that's where I put my focus. I never thought about being the only woman in the room. I never thought about whether, when I went into a meeting, whether it was a meeting of bankers or municipal leaders or a locker room meeting or an NFL owners meeting or a Raider ownership meeting, I never spent my time thinking about the fact that I was, quote, the woman in the room. Because one, if I don't want anyone else focusing on my gender, it does not make sense to me that I should be focusing on my gender. If I want to go into a meeting and have no one care about my gender, then I'm not thinking about it. Number two, I'm not wasting my time. If anybody else wants to waste their time, go ahead and waste your time. I'm not wasting mine.
I love that. I love it so much. And then not too far after you negotiate like a girl, you get to a point where you tell a story about how he talks about not swearing, and Al Davis talks about not swearing in front of women. And then you make this big gesture, and he's like, well, Amy, I don't consider Amy a woman. And you say, isn't that the goal, to be treated without regard or gender? And I thought, you know what? There needs to be more Al Davis in the world. There needs
Oh
to be
boy,
more
yeah.
leadership that says in front of a public setting that this woman does the job. That's all that matters to me. And I think that would make such a big difference for even just marginalized people everywhere in their jobs if leadership did that kind of thing, as strange as it sounds.
I don't think it sounds strange at all. And the story that you just referenced was one of the most special moments of my career. It was, precisely as you said, we were in a meeting setting, and Al apologized to a woman who was in the meeting saying, he tried not to swear in front of women. And I start looking at all my colleagues like, did he just say that? He swore, what did he say that? And then he says to the woman, and I never swear at a woman. And now my pen flies out of my hand and it lands on the table, and I'm looking all around like, did he actually just say that? And he looked over at me and said precisely what you said. He said, oh, Amy, I swear at Amy, but I don't think of her, or I don't consider her a woman. And that was the single biggest compliment he could have given me. He considered whether or not I did the job. He didn't consider anything else. And you're absolutely right. We need more people like that in this world. We need to fill this world with people like that. And look, I know there's going to be people listening to this who are Raider fans, and people who are Raider haters, people who loved Al Davis, people who couldn't stand him. But if we're all being intellectually honest, we will agree that this is someone who hired without regard to race, gender, ethnicity, or any other individuality, which has no bearing whatsoever on whether one can do a job. And he did this decades and decades and decades before these were even topics of discussion. And you are absolutely right, Kelly. We need more of that in this world.
Oh, wow. I mean, just a real trailblazer, no matter how you feel about any other aspect of the game. In the business sense, such a trailblazer. Something else you touched on, Amy, was hard work. And I love that you did this, because hard work matters. And not only does hard work matter, but also doing the right thing matters. And I think those go hand in hand. As owning my own business at one point, just doing the right thing, doing right by people, and working my ass off only helped to propel my career, where some people think, oh, you're a pushover, you're too kind, or you can just make your own hours, 9 to 5, whatever. It's not like that. Hard work matters. And your story really highlights that, Amy, because I think of that phrase, do what you love what you do. But I feel like your slogan could almost be like, do what you love what you do, and love what it gives back to you. Because the stories that you share such a passion for your job and what you put into it. It gave back to you. Do you think you could narrow down like a single moment that your hard work gave back to you that you'll never forget, like an experience, or I don't know?
I don't know. I've never really looked at it as giving back to me. The things you say just resonated with me. I don't know that I've ever looked at it in that manner. So I don't have an answer for you. And I also would say that having been there almost 3 decades, I couldn't isolate one particular moment, or there were moments throughout my career that will stay with me forever. But as to the point you made, I really and truly believe in hard work. Hard work matters. It really, really matters. And, I hear this expression all the time, and we've all heard it for a number of years now: work smart, work smart. Well, first of all, no one wants to work dumb. I mean, so when you're going to tell me work smart, okay, great, because I wasn't planning on working dumb. And I know what people mean by that. They think if you work smart, you can work less. Well, I don't buy that. Hard work really, really matters. And when you think you've worked as hard as you can, find a way to work harder. I'm always perplexed by those involved in sports who will look at players on the field or on the court and criticize a player for not doing enough. Wow, that guard, he saw the left tackle was struggling and he didn't even slide over and help. Or that safety saw that the corner couldn't keep with his man and he didn't even fly over across the field and help. And yet some of those same people would come into my office and say, I finished everything I need to do today, so I'm going to head out early and, have a nice afternoon or evening or whatever. And I would say, oh okay, that I get you. Have you walked around to some of the other departments? The community relations department is going to be here till 9 or 10 at night, stuffing gift bags for the event we're having tomorrow. Or did you go to the ticket office? The phone lines are crushed. Maybe you could help out there, or maybe you could help get will call ready. And how can you criticize the guard for not helping the left tackle if you're in the finance department and you're not going to go help the ticket department? It just doesn't make sense to me. You can talk about teamwork. Teamwork's not just on the field. Teamwork's not just on the court. Teamwork carries forward everywhere. And even if you're not involved in sports, teamwork matters.
Exactly, 100%. And what you said about, being critical of players, I know that that's just inherent of people who, I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt, that love the game and love football. And they're like, oh, I would have done this or that. But I do feel like we should be careful about how critical we are of players. And anytime I'm doing a podcast where I'm being a fanalist, as I like to say, I always make a point to say, I've never been a head coach, so I have no idea if this is even plausible. And then I just kind of pose the question of what I observed as a fan and how does this play out, and kind of get our audience to engage in that way. But you're so right. Like, being critical of players is just something that we're inundated with, especially on Twitter. So kind of along those lines, I've heard you speak out and on the running back market. Particularly, maybe we could talk about Josh Jacobs, because I have heard you on another podcast talk about this. If you were the CEO of the Raiders right now, how would you handle the Josh Jacobs holdout situation? Or did you ever deal with a situation when you were CEO that was similar to this?
Well, let me clear up for one moment that I wasn't involved with signing players or roster composition or drafting. That was handled by the team owner and the football operations people. So I'll answer your question in two regards. This is not something in which I gave my opinion. I shared my views.
Yeah.
I didn't keep my mouth shut. But I wasn't involved in the roster construction or the signing of the players. Now, if you're asking me to, and I will happily do a hypothetical right now and pretend I was with a team, either the team that is, either looking to sign Josh Jacobs or Jonathan Taylor or, another running back. The Giants got Saquon signed. I value the running game. I place a tremendous value on the running game. Everything works together in football. The better your running game is going to help, a better running game is going to help your passing game. If a defense has to defend against a very, very good running game, it's going to open up receivers and it's going to help with the passing game. Football is math in some regards. It's 11 on 11. And if you really have to focus on stopping a good back, well, then you're not going to necessarily send double coverage on a receiver, or what are you going to do? How are you going to block that tight end? And, there's different mathematical compositions. And I think the better your running game, the more it helps your passing game. So I'm a firm believer in the running game. Now, that said, I do understand the supply and demand issues. And a lot of people say, well, look, the supply of good running backs exceeds the demand for good running backs. So the question is, how much do you value the back you have? And if you value the back you have, my view is you try to get them signed.
Exactly. I totally agree with you, just as the casual fan. And something else that had come to mind as the casual fan, there was a tweet that was out there talking about salaries and blah, blah, blah. And I thought salaries are important, but you also need to think about the lifespan of a running back's career. It's not as long as these other roles that you see on teams, and they're underneath their rookie contracts and they're underneath these franchise tags. And by the time they hit the free market, they may have already used their best years. And I feel like that's something that should be talked about more, but I could be totally off. I'm observing this as just a casual person. What are your thoughts on their ability to enter the free market as a short lifespan?
Well, you've raised all the topical issues. It's a punishing position. It's a very punishing position. You raised all the points. You're running the ball. There's times you're blocking. You're getting hit a lot. It is a punishing position. How much you get beaten up during any particular game, during any particular season, depends on the offense that's being run, depends on the offensive lineman. What kind of blocking are you getting? Are you in every down back? Are you a situational back? I don't think there's one answer that fits all. And the issue you raise about the tags and how backs are treated, if that's going to be changed at all, that's going to have to be the subject of collective bargaining.
That was kind of going to be my next follow-up question. Like, how does change even happen at that point? Do the running backs kind of band together, or is there a higher level that can say, this needs to change? That sounds so elementary, Amy, but I'm really genuinely curious. Like, how would change happen?
Well, it can happen in any number of ways. There's no one particular way. I'm not sure that it's particularly, I'm hunting for the right word, not viable, but I just don't think it's likely. Maybe that's the best way to express it, that all the backs will band together, because, a lot of times people will say, whether it's in the running back situation or any situation, he or they, depending on whether it's a single player in some instances in which this is discussed, or they when it's a group of players, such as we're now talking about, he should sit out a year. They should sit out a year. Well, look, if the average NFL career is very, very short, and we talk all the time about players who've been in the league 8 and 10 years and the stars of the league. Well, most players are in the league for a very, very, very brief amount of time. So I'm going to use the number 3 right now, or the number 4, just because that's easy to do the math, and I like easy math. If a player's career might be 3 years or might be 4 years. And, people are blithely saying, he should sit out a year. They should all sit out a year. Well, wait a minute. You're suggesting that someone sit out 1/3 of their career or 25% of their career? If it just, it's a big, big step to sit out. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen. The current CBA that's in place is in place for a very long time to come. If there are concessions or changes or anything the league wants to rejigger in the CBA, that would give the Players Association an opportunity to go back to the league and say, okay, we'll talk to you about the change you want. We'd like to make a little adjustment in this area. It'll be the subject of a discussion and a negotiation. I don't know where that will go. None of us know where that will go.
Exactly. Man, that was such a good question. I'm glad I got your answer. You really helped me wrap my head around that, because like I said, just as a casual fan, it feels so unfair, but hearing it from you, it just helps. That leads me to my next question, because I am so curious. How much of the CEO's job is really team-centric versus just the day-to-day, perhaps with PR or marketing or, the public perception? Could you give us kind of what is the day in the life of the NFL CEO?
Every single day is different. And I was with the team for almost 30 years, and there were no 2 days that were the same. All the things that you mentioned, there's the finance department and the legal department and PR and marketing and tickets and sponsorship and social media and community relations and and then there's the training room, and then there's catering, and there's equipment, and there's groundskeepers. There's no one answer to your question. There is no typical day, and that's the fun of it.
That's what I was just going to say. I could see why you would love it so much. That's why I love my job so much. And I'm just the VP of marketing here at Trophy Smack. And it's because
No. Wait.
Not just. Let me rewind. Because I am the VP of marketing.
Yes, let's take the just out.
So you're helping me already reframe. But it's exactly why I love my job, because no day is alike. Every day is different. And I think that's why I loved your book so much. And I think that's why I love being your Twitter mutual so much, is I can see that in you, that just you love what every day brings. It's so exciting.
I do. I love what every day brings. That's a great way to express it.
Let's talk about some more fun things, kind of off topic. I know we've been talking a lot about football, and you've been so gracious to share kind of your thoughts on these things, but how did you become the official pet attorney of Twitter?
I'm so glad. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze, and I don't want to sneeze on the phone, so hold on one sec. Okay. I don't know how. I just, I saw something at one point where a dog was being accused of something, and I jumped in and I said, wait. On behalf of my client's innocent. And I just mounted this little defense. I mean, look, law school had to be good for something, right? So I mounted this dog defense, and then all these dogs and cats, it just kept flooding across my timeline. This dog's been accused of this dog's been accused of that. And of course, I'm quick to note whenever someone says, this dog is accused of X, but really the cat did it. Oh, no. I represent the cat too. I think I've represented goats and horses and cats and dogs. And you know how Twitter at one point, or shall I say X, but this was back when it was Twitter, started creating the list for you, where they give you a feed, an algorithm of accounts that they thought you would be interested in. I must be doing something right in life, because my entire For You are dogs and cats and animals, or I should say almost my entire list. So yes, I have fun representing dogs and cats. And I always say, thank you.
Oh no. It looks like we may have had an internet hiccup in Amy's audio. hopefully she'll be able to hop back on and join us. In the meantime, I saw Josh put out there, if anybody has any questions, to feel free to drop them there in the chat, and we will hopefully be able to get her reconnected. I see her still in our green room, so hopefully her audio will reconnect. Today we are giving away, oh, she just dropped. We'll give her a few minutes and see if she's able to rejoin us. If not, that's okay too. We do have, let's see. She sent me a text just now. She got cut off and she's going to try and hop back in. But we are giving away some jerseys tonight. If you haven't gotten your raffle ticket, Josh, is it too late? Yes, it is too late for tonight's drawing, but every Wednesday through the month of August, we are going to have raffles of amazing memorabilia. We're going to be telling you more about it later. Got Amy back, I think. Yeah.
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, my phone, I thought I got ding dong ditched.
No, I would never do that. I'm so glad you made it back, though. And you're right. You are doing something right on Twitter. If all that you're seeing in your feed happens to be animals, I would love that in my life personally. Versus some of the stuff that does come across my feed.
No kidding. No kidding.
Amy, we're going to we've asked people if they have any questions to drop them in the chat for us. So we'll keep an eye on that, and Josh will moderate for that. But I wanted to talk to you a bit about your appearance just recently on the Rich Eisen Show, and you and Susie Schuster are launching a new podcast. Would you tell us about that?
Sure. And thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Susie and I will be launching a new podcast. It's going to launch the week leading into the first games of the regular season. And we're going to talk football, but also, other sports as they may be of interest, non-sport issues as they may be arising. But the primary focus will be football. And I will tell you that there will be ice cream involved. And, if our guests like ice cream, we'll share with them. If not, we'll eat it all.
You can never go wrong with ice cream. And I have to say, listening to that show, it was just August 4th. If anybody wants to go back and listen to that Rich Eisen Show, August 4th episode with Amy, the back and forth that you and Susie have is so good. You can tell that you're friends and that you have this ease with each other. And also you made a comment, which I personally loved, being women of a certain age. And I'm like, I'm a woman of a certain age. And I just love that relatability. So we're going to get football. We're going to get friends. We're going to get good conversations. And it's going to be relatable on all kinds of levels. I can tell.
Really appreciate that, Kelly, so much, because you, once again, you said it beautifully. I wouldn't be doing it with someone with whom I didn't want to do it. I have such tremendous respect and admiration for Susie. She is smart. She is wise. She is so good at what she does. And yes, we're going to talk about some serious things, but we're also going to have a whole lot of fun.
I love that so much. I'm so excited. I've already marked a Post-it note next to me with the start date.
I love it that you use Post-it notes. I love that.
I do. Post-it notes for life. I do see some questions popping up in the chat, and Josh has starred them so lovingly. Do you want to pop in? Let's see. Carrington Hobbs is asking, who is your favorite little rascal? That's a very interesting question.
Okay. I hate to do this to the first question, but here it comes. I was never a Little Rascals fan.
Me
I mean,
neither.
I can't say I never watched the Little Rascals. I did maybe on occasion, but I just wasn't a real avid Little Rascals person. So I don't even know the name of the characters.
I
Now, if you
feel you.
switched Little Rascals to Gilligan's Island or to the Brady Bunch or to the Partridge Family, I could help you out. But yeah, I'm going to get an F on this question. I got no answer.
Let's just rearrange it then. Who is your favorite member of the Brady Bunch?
I think Jan. You remember the
I
episode? You're too young, but the episode where Marsha's getting all the attention and Jan says, "Marsha, Marsha, Marsha." So I think I'm going with Jan.
I like that too. It's a very iconic moment. And Jan really, I think, asserted herself in later episodes. So we should be proud of Jan.
There you go.
Another question here has popped up. Bill Underwood asks, what's the best and worst trade you've been involved in? Were negotiations was part of your job? Maybe share your favorite or maybe your least favorite.
Well, I did not handle the football operations. So
Got
that
it.
was, it's people would always say, you guys need a GM. Well, we had a GM. His name was Al Davis. And Al handled our football operations, and he did have people that helped him and people to whom he listened and people who worked with him. But I wasn't involved in those other than to be, sharing my opinion as regularly and as often as I wanted.
Yes.
There were some good trades. We traded for an offensive lineman. I loved that one. I'll think about that. And if I think of any, I'll come back. But just to be very, very,
Yes.
clear, because I don't want to in any way mislead anyone, I wasn't the one doing the trades.
I think you can tell,
Oh, wait.
Amy.
No, wait. I
Yes.
did do a great trade. There was this guy who was interning in our football operations, and I had my eye on him. And he was a football ops intern. He was answering the phone in the football building. Raiders, just picking up the phone and answering it straight out of college. Well, I talked to him quite a bit, and I thought this guy has potential. And I said to Al, I want to add him to the finance department. And Al said, okay, do it. So I picked up the phone, the internal phone from one office to another, and I called our then head of football operations, Steve Ortmeyer, and I said of the guy that he had answering the phones, I want that guy for our finance department. I'm giving you, and then I named this absolute stiff intern in the PR department that I wanted to get rid of. So I said, I'm taking Mark and you're getting this guy. And I made the trade. That was my best trade ever. I got him for our finance department.
I love that so much. I love it more than you will ever know. And I'll have to tell you why offline, because I don't want to offend anybody that knows me or my career. But I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I think you can tell that we're just so curious, as I've asked about your day-to-day, and we've already talked about how every day is different, that we're just so curious as to the things that you're involved in when you're part of a team like the Raiders. It's just really exciting to the fan. That's just, oh my gosh, that is a dream job. So thank you for clarifying when we're just like clueless. Here's another question from Gemma Martinez. And I asked something a little bit like this earlier, if you could narrow it down a moment, but she's like, do you have a favorite moment of your time being CEO with the Raiders?
No, how can I pick one moment over 30 years? There were just some and again, I'm not looking to avoid or to evade.
No.
It was 30 years of special moments.
Exactly.
And some of them were deeply, deeply personal and touching. When Al said, I don't think of Amy, Amy, I swear at Amy, I don't consider Amy a woman. That was incredibly special. Mm-hmm. He said something magnificent to my husband after a game that involved a lot of swearing, but it was beautiful, so I won't repeat it here. So many of his special moments did involve swearing, but in the most magnificent way. There's not one moment. There was 30 years of special moments.
That's the most beautiful.
Okay, I'll give you one.
Okay.
We were in the midst of I was working on a deal, and it was of paramount importance to the organization. it was really existential in nature. Were we going to survive or not? And at one point I said to Al, and when I say, were we going to survive, was ownership going to survive? Were we going to be able to continue on? And I said to him, I don't know how you sleep at night. And he said to me, I sleep at night because I know you don't.
Mm. And that's such, like, what pride you must take in that, right? I always say to my team, I shine. You guys make me shine. I shine because of the work that you do. And
Oh,
essentially,
wonderful.
that's
I'm interrupting you.
right?
I'm interrupting you just to tell you I am smiling ear to ear because it is magnificent that you share that with them.
Thank you. I mean, that I just am thinking about that moment, gives me goosebumps when Al says it to you, because you don't sleep, I sleep. And that's pretty much the same sentiment, right? You know that everything's getting done. And in turn, I do that for my CEO, hopefully. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Amy. Man, this was such a great interview. I don't want to take up any more of your time than we need to. I feel like we have covered such amazing things. People, be sure to keep your eye out for Amy's new podcast that is coming out. Amy, what is the name of that podcast again? The football.
Well, we announced at one point it was going to be the football scoop. The scoop being, of course, a double entendre, both
for ice cream.
Football and ice cream. And really, ice cream scoop. Those who know me know that, there's lots of ice cream scoops in this house. We may jiggle or juggle the name, but there's going to be ice cream involved, and we will announce the formal name as soon as we settle upon it. And I really appreciate you referencing it a lot. I everything about this discussion we've had has me smiling. The way you conduct business, the way you look at a team of people. It's really, if I were sitting next to you, I'd give you a hug.
I feel it. Virtual hug accepted. Amy, again, thank you so much for being with us. I know our audience loves it. We'll continue to share the episode. And as soon as we see episodes of your new pod coming, WOFF is definitely going to jump in and support that as well. And I just can't thank you enough for being here.
Thank you again for having me. And I will again say that I still laugh at myself that the first time I saw WOFF, I thought it said woof, not WOFF. And I tweeted out woof, and then I realized my error. But that I'm going to blame that on my dog advocacy background.
Woof. I love it. That made me laugh too. Well, we will talk again, I hope sometime soon, Amy.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was amazing. Amazing. So without further ado, I am going to bring Josh back into the picture because I know all of you are awaiting some raffle prizes.
Wow, what a freaking interview. Just wow. And it's so funny too, because I remember when I asked you, hey, can you get me a profile pic of Amy so that we can put on the marketing? And you sent me the one that we've been literally using this entire time. And the first response I had, really? The laser eyes? That's what we're going with here? And you're like, oh, she thought it was fun. That's the one she picked. Yeah. And you know what? After listening to this interview, I get it. Amy is fantastic. She's got a sense of humor. And there's anything in it's just, it was gold. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. And Kelly, thank you. And Amy, thank you even more, because that was just awesome. I'm at a loss for words right now.
I know, me too. I'm really grateful even just to have the platform to bring an interview like that. Wow, that was really fun. And thank you everybody that has left comments and helped to share. Your community participation is not unnoticed.
100%. All right, so we ready to give away some raffle items?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's share this screen here. So we ended up raising $530 this week.
That's amazing.
So excited. And I cannot thank everybody enough that purchased raffle tickets, that shared the tweets. I know that it can get a little old sometimes because we tend to share them quite a bit, but everything that we're doing with our WOFF GALvanize Scholarship, it's of the utmost importance to us, and everything that we do with WOFF. And, it all goes to a good cause. What Laura Oakman has done with GALvanize has just been absolutely fantastic. And anything that we can do to help continue her objective and what she's trying to accomplish, we're all about it. Kelly, I know you had a chance to meet Laura at the Super Bowl, and I know that experience was next level. Not just meeting her, but as a whole.
Yes.
All right. So first up, we are giving away signed Nick Chubb jersey. So first, I want to quickly apologize to anybody that wins these raffles today, because I'm catching a flight to Canton, Ohio at 5:00 in the morning tomorrow. So these will not go out, unfortunately, until after I get back. So be prepared for a little bit of delay. But that being said, you're getting a signed Nick Chubb jersey if you win this raffle. So with that, I'm going to spin the wheel, and we'll see who I get to send this to. Look at that! It happens to actually be one of our team members here. Austin, congratulations, buddy.
Rigged. I'm just kidding.
No. Oh, that's funny. The only people that are excluded from these raffles are our core group here is Kelly, Faith, myself, Ryan. I'd let Joe do this just because he only throws like one ticket every once in a while. It's all good. All right. Next up. There it is. Okay. All right. Now this one is for our signed Jonathan Taylor jersey, which hopefully he's still on the Colts here in a couple weeks, because this is getting a little dicey. All right. Who's winning the Jonathan Taylor jersey? Okay, now it kind of does feel rigged. Apparently it's all Club Fantasy people that are winning these things.
Wow.
But you know what, though? I will say this. Austin and Joel have both been graciously active in not only their shares of everything that we do with WOFF, but they've donated quite a bit over the last couple of years. So I'm more than happy to usher these giveaways to them. I can actually take the Taylor one to Joel because he'll be in Canton for this one. So I'm happy about that. All right.
There you go.
So next week, or for the next week, we've got 2 more raffles and 2 more guests. Kind of excited about both because we've kind of dubbed this Minnesota Vikings week, since one of our guests is Minnesota Vikings beat reporter Lindsey Young, who has ties with GALvanize. So very excited to talk with Lindsey and hear some of her story and what she's gone through at, getting into the space of sports broadcasting. And first giveaway is a signed Justin Jefferson jersey, keeping with the Vikings theme.
Nice theme.
And second, a signed Adrian Peterson jersey. Got to go a little old school on this one. But again, keeping with the theme of the Vikings. So from now until next Wednesday, August 16th, head over to womenoffantasyfootball.com. You can click on the graphic that has the jerseys. It'll take you over to the page where you can purchase your raffle tickets. They are $5 a piece. You can buy as many as you want. And 100% of these ticket sales will go into our WOFF GALvanize Scholarship Fund. And if you need to know anything more about that, you can go to lauraoakman.com/GALvanize. You can also find the latest episode of Her Story in the Making from Britt Flynn over on our the Club Fantasy FFL YouTube page. Her interview with Ty Floyd, who is a GALvanize alum. She talks a lot about what that organization has done for her in her career. So educate yourself on that, and it'll kind of help you say and realize, you know what, I'm getting something out of this, but I'm giving a lot back as well. And that's something that we try to accomplish here with this. So With that, take it away, Kelly. It's all yours.
I don't know what else to say. Thank you all for tuning in, for kicking off season 4 with us. Faith, you are dearly missed. Can't wait to get back together with our co-hosting duties next week, and I can't wait to see all of you again in the chat next week. So
I will say
then,
one thing I did forget, because we do have a second guest. And they're the ones that are leading off next week's show, because Lindsay comes on at 7:45. So something that we wanted to do this year with Women of Fantasy was introduce content consumers to the public. Something that we've had a good amount of success with. Rachel, Tootsie Pop 6 on Twitter. She's come out with her fantasy football diary series. And we said, you know what? Let's meet some of these content consumers, because they're the ones ultimately that are driving everything that we're doing. So next week starts our introduction to the content consumer, and we're bringing on Hope Myers as the first content consumer to the show. You can follow her on Twitter at @high_hope77. She's a huge Miami Dolphins fan. She's also a huge fantasy football fan. So it'll be a lot of fun talking with her, getting to know her, how she got involved with fantasy football, and ultimately why she loves football and the Miami Dolphins so much. So it's going to be a good show. Can't wait.
Me either. I'm excited.
Good times. All right. With that, let's close it out. We'll play some music and we'll end the broadcast. Everybody, we appreciate you for tuning in. And what a great first episode. Awesome.
I loved it.
Just awesome. See everybody next week.